at the moment.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for Kilmarnock and Luton for referring to the letter that the Environmental Audit Committee has just sent under my name to the Secretary of State. It's a letter which I'm very pleased that my honourable friend for the member for Folkestone and Hythe allowed to be tagged to this debate when he secured it, and I congratulate him for doing so. I think it's an important subject, and from our committee's point of view, it's timely because we wrote to the Secretary of State only the last couple of weeks ago before the recess. While members of my committee, which is a very diverse committee with a complete range of opinion on this subject, some of whom have very strong reservations about the whole role and scope for nuclear energy in the UK, I would like to start by placing on record my personal support for nuclear energy and the SMR programme, which is the subject of our letter and will be the subject of my remarks today. It is an important contributor on the path to net zero, not just to contribute to base load, but also to contribute to the significant increase in electricity generation that's going to be required if we manage to decarbonise our economy, as is supported across this House. But in contrast to the party opposite, and I look forward to listening to the opposition spokesman's response to this debate, but that the energy policy of the Labour Party is in complete disarray. And I therefore welcome the stark contrast which has been provided by the Minister, in particular in his new role as Minister for Nuclear, in getting nuclear on the road to regeneration as a core part of our energy mix as we move towards net zero. It's precisely because the Labour Party, during their last period in office, made no decisions whatsoever, wouldn't even debate the subject, that we have such a skills shortage in the UK civil nuclear sector, which was picked up by the intervention from the Right Honourable Member opposite, because no new nuclear reactors have come online in the UK since 1995 because of that indecision. So I really welcome the civil nuclear roadmap, which sets out the government's ambition to reach as much as 24 gigawatts of nuclear power by 2050. And indeed, the intent to deploy SMRs will assist the UK in reaching that target as set out under the British Energy Security Strategy. But I do wish to ask the Minister to consider the concerns which I raised in the committee's letter of the 13th of February to the Secretary of State, among which is the fact that the investment decisions sought between 2030 and 2044 are likely on current plans to realise generating capacity of between 9 gigawatts and 21 gigawatts. And the Minister, who's very good at maths, will recognise that this is quite a range, 12 gigawatts, or half of the government's 24 gigawatt upper target for nuclear capacity by 2050. Great British Nuclear told our committee that the government's target of producing up to 24 gigawatts of nuclear power was not sufficient to give industry confidence about the scale of investment that would be required, and suggested that a specific programme should be required to facilitate industry confidence. So further clarity, which was really the essence of my letter, is what would be welcome. And despite the government's assertions in response to the committee's recent intervention, the roadmap does not, as it stands, offer as much clarity as industry and investors require. Given the increasing international interest and competition to invest in building nuclear energy capacity, we need to recognise that the UK market for creating this additional capacity cannot be considered in isolation. We are in an international race to transition our economy into a decarbonised world, in which many other countries are looking to build nuclear capacity. So those involved in delivering that capacity will have choices where to invest, where to build, and where to bid. A key role for government in achieving the objective of introducing SMR nuclear energy is to provide as much clarity as possible in the process for decision-making, the timescale to which they are working, and the manner of the procurement process, including funding and contracting models. I'd also like to urge my honourable friend, the Minister, to make as much the clear expectation from government as possible in gigawatt rollout. so that the contribution SMRs are expected to make to electricity generation mix in the UK by 2035 is made available to industry to give them the confidence to invest in the programme to the extent that the government would like, and according to the timetable that the government has indicated in the roadmap. I assume that ministers are as convinced as I am about the future role of baseload generation in supplying electricity to the grid, alongside the power to be provided by renewables, and I'm sure the minister will need no further invitation to set this out in response to this debate. On current estimates, it seems unlikely that SMR deployment will be contributing generating capacity to the grid until 2035, which is the date by when the government expects the GB electricity grid to have been decarbonised, with both Hinkley and Sizewell likely to be operational in the early 2030s. Quite how the party opposite believe they can decarbonise the grid a full 5 years ahead of this by 2030, against all consensus of prevailing expert advice, is a matter for them, but it seems wholly fanciful and frankly misleading to the British public. So what will the additional generating capacity to be delivered through an SMR fleet provide? There are strong suggestions in the roadmap and its supporting papers that a fleet of SMRs based on advanced nuclear technologies will have applications beyond power generation. But until those technologies are proven to be viable for deployment in SMRs, with the benefits that a modular approach to construction is expected to provide, which were very well highlighted by my honourable friend in introducing this debate, they remain some way off investability. Not only is nuclear, and I believe the SMR approach to deployment, a crucial component of reaching net zero, but there are significant economic benefits to the UK if we are a leader in deployment of this technology, including the large potential export market for SMR units. The UK is in an advanced position among Western countries with regards to our SMR programme, and this has the potential to facilitate a nascent export market and deliver new skilled jobs across the UK. Along with my right honourable friend, the member for Newmarket, in 2015, when I was Minister for Defence Equipment, Science and Technology and had responsibility for the defence nuclear procurement, I was proud to launch the coalition government's then programme for sustaining the UK's nuclear skills. The competitive advantage that we have in this field is potentially huge if properly resourced and incentivised. All of this, however, requires the government to flesh out the roadmap in ways which further demonstrate a long-term commitment to the UK's nuclear future, and to learn from the issues in procuring gigawatt-scale nuclear when developing its strategy to deliver nuclear through SMRs. Simon Bowen, who I commend for his clear leadership of Great British Nuclear, explained to our committee that between 1 and 4 SMR designs are to be selected for government contracts, with at least one SMR project to be taken to final investment decision by 2029. But on this issue of timetable, I was disappointed that the roadmap removed reference to the clear clarity of timeline for conclusion of the current design competition, signalling the government may push back awarding contracts to winners of the SMR design competition beyond summer 2024 as originally intended. And I very much hope that the Minister can use this opportunity to clarify when he expects to announce the outcome, and hopefully that will be prior to the summer recess. As any of us who've held responsibility for procurement in government will know, time is a constant pressure. So I encourage the Minister to do all he can while in post to put in place the right processes early so that deadlines do not slip. Our committee has said that in the interests of parliamentary and public confidence, both in the expenditure of public money and the timely delivery of expected benefits, the SMR programme should be fully subject to a value for money audit by the National Audit Office, provided that this in itself does not add delay to the delivery. I recognise that pressure to streamline planning and regulatory processes, but the committee thought it vital in this matter that robust governance and safety arrangements are maintained. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is not an area where ministers will want to cut corners. While I'm on my feet, I'd just like to ask the Minister to comment in his closing remarks on media reports which highlighted that Great British Nuclear is in discussion with EDF to purchase a part of the existing nuclear site at Heysham, as a likely location for one of the first SMR facilities. My honourable friend, the member for Morecambe and Loonsdale, a neighbour of the Deputy Speaker's, in whose constituency Heysham sits, cannot be here for this debate, but he has told me that this site in his constituency has grid and rail connections, a supportive community, and clearly a very highly skilled workforce, the largest of any generating site in the UK at present, and this could support the operation of any future nuclear development at Heysham. In order to help accelerate deployment, once the successful designs have been selected, and again as was called for by other speakers in this debate already, could the Minister confirm whether Great British Nuclear could make a start to preparing one or more sites for the eventual successful bidders once the government has announced which sites they've designated for initial deployment? Finally, Mr Deputy Speaker, the fact that every nuclear power plant started life under a Conservative government really does demonstrate the willingness on this side of the House to make important decisions for the long-term future of this country. I welcome the government's plans, representing the biggest expansion in nuclear power, I would say, for 70 years. My honourable friend who introduced the debate said 50, which will lead to a quadrupling of nuclear capacity by 2050. The UK can once again become a leading nation in providing civil nuclear energy, and this government can take credit for taking the key decisions to bring this about. It would be great to expedite those decisions as soon as possible.
Ms Saville Roberts.